Welcome to the Low Carb MD Podcast. No one is beyond help. No one is beyond hope.
As we have always said, we are bringing you medical information and cutting-edge science, but none of this is medical advice. Please seek out input from your own doctor.
Hello and welcome back to the Low Carb MD Podcast. Tro, we've outdone ourselves this time. Like this, I kept hearing about this person. I'm like, who the heck is everyone loves this lady? Who is this? And then I saw one of her talks and I was like, oh my gosh. And I'm a huge fan. I love everything this person does. Tro, what do you give us the intro?
Oh, let me tell you, the life of the party on the cruise, which guys, it's going to be 2025 sooner than you know it. So start thinking about Alaska. Okay, so start thinking about the Alaska cruise, which I hear two repeat customers will be there, right? You know, at least Nurse Cindy and Dr. Brian, possibly myself. But
working out negotiation to get the big name Tro over there.
Yeah, no, we'll see what happens. But guys, start thinking about it. But on the cruise, oh my God, the life of the party. And then I'm like, where do I know her from? Where do I know her from? And I'm like, it's her YouTube. It's her YouTube. And I know her YouTube. I followed her on YouTube, and I just started following her on Facebook. 60,000 people on Facebook. So if you have been living under a rock like I was, this is Nurse Cindy. So go out to YouTube, go out to Facebook, follow her. So excited to have her on right now. I want to like absorb all that energy. That's what I want.
Yeah, and the information and wisdom and all that. I mean, your talks are so great and entertaining and fun.
I'm a hoot.
Tro and I are going back, and we're going to figure out how to step up our game a little bit to try to be a cheap imitation of you at some point.
You guys.
I'm Brian, you may be fired soon, and I may be hiring her.
I know. I'm worried. I'm going to be on my best behavior right now.
Oh, wow.
So
okay, what an intro. Well, thank
tell
you
people about you and like your clinical experience, all that stuff, and what you're doing now.
Well, how you started, and even how you started. I think that was like the most warming part too.
Well, thank you. I am a registered nurse. I've been a registered nurse for 45 years, and I've specialized in wound care, wound healing for the last 32 years. So if any of you have a friend or know of anyone that's ever had either a traumatic injury or they've got an ulcer of some sort, that's where I lean into clinically currently. I still work full time, and I'm an educator. I have a global role educating about a specific set of devices that we use in different wound care products. So that's who I am clinically. I started as Nurse Cindy because I did a little video in the parking lot of a gas station because I walked in, actually got my coffee, walked out, and didn't grab 3 or 4 cellophane wrapped little bars of death. And it was such an intrinsic part of who I was to sneak eat. I was absolutely, totally obsessed with processed, I don't even want to call it food-like substances. But if I go back to how I did this, before I just jump and skip all over the world verbally, from my earliest memory, was the largest, fattest, chubbiest, insert the word for obese, child in any class from first grade all the way through I graduated from nursing school. And when I started first grade, I was born in 57, so I started first grade in the early 60s. There just wasn't the preponderance of childhood obesity that there is today. And it was very much accepted to make fun of them, me. First grade, school nurse brought in the scales, put them on the floor in front of the class. Our teacher had the list of names, and she had each of us come up one by one and step on the scales, and she would read out the weight to the teacher. And I was 95 pounds in the first grade. Fast forward through how I adapted to that. I adapted to that by being the outgoing person. I didn't introvert. I didn't pull into myself. So I managed and offset. Oftentimes before they could say anything, I'd make a joke about it, and lived in bondage. Was not able to do the things other kids could. I wasn't invited to dances, went, right? But any of you who have struggled your whole life with being buried, not under fat, but under not knowing how to manage it, how to dig out, how to set yourself free. My very first time I joined Weight Watchers, I was 16. And that was the earliest they would let you join back then. So my highest weight was 307. And that was after I had my second daughter. And I lost, up and down and up and down. I must have had 4 sizes of clothes in my closet. And one day my sister called me. I was at one of my lower highs. I was 240 pounds at the time. I'm 5'2", by the way, 5'2". And she said, Cindy, I've started doing low carb again, Atkins. And I'm like, because I knew what that meant. I knew my beloved carbs would be laid on this altar of sacrifice. And I totally ignored her for so long. I would hang up on her. I'd say, oh, I got to go. Work is called. And she finally sent me that very famous TED Talk by Dr. Sarah Hallberg, bless her heart, when she's in the blue pants. And my A1C was 6.4. So those of you that follow and know what that means, really, I was already in diabetes inside too, but I hadn't clicked over to that full blown. So I was pre-diabetic. And she said, would you watch this video? That's all. Would you just watch it? And I was like, all right. And I think, you have to be ready. There's certain times in your life that you're so sick and tired of having to ask for seatbelt extensions, because I flew a lot for my job, traveled a lot. And I watched it and it was like click, 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 click. And I was like, you've got to be kidding me. Because I think we probably all know someone that has a child with peanut allergy. I mean, that's why we don't get peanuts on the plane anymore. But I don't think we would ever say to them, you react really badly to peanuts. In fact, peanuts can kill you. But I'm going to give you an EpiPen. And all you have to do if you want that PBJ or that peanut brittle is cover your peanuts with this with epinephrine pen. We would never do that. And that day it was like a tsunami of regret. Oh my God, I can't believe I've been so deceived. And I have a type 1 diabetic daughter. She had been diabetic since she was 3. And I started this about 8 years ago, this lifestyle. And mother guilt is a real thing. There's probably dad guilt too, but all I can speak to is mother guilt. And all I could think of was all the things I had done wrong because I just didn't know. So that's my story. I started low carb 8 years ago, and I'm down 94 pounds. And the energy, thank you. And here's the important thing. I lost it. Everybody says, how fast did you lose it? I'm gonna look in the camera. It doesn't matter. I've kept it off for the first time in my life. The first time ever in my life, I found a lifestyle that is sustainable. And I understand what certain foods do to either benefit my health or pull it down. But it took about a year and a half, a little bit longer probably, actually, because my longest stall was 18 months. If any of you go back to my older videos, I'll say, hi, I'm Cindy from Master Cindy, and I've lost 75 pounds a month later. I've lost 75 pounds. I've lost 70. And when COVID hit and I was able to not be on the road all the time, and I'm talking Japan, China, India, Europe, sometimes just the United States, and that jet lag and that inability to keep any type of circadian rhythm, that coupled with being able to always have food that I prepared. I ate as well as I could, but the seed oils are just rampant. It helped me drop the rest of that. So that's the energy. Part of it is I'm just an optimist, okay? The other part is I am not carrying around 94 pounds on my body, in my brain, and in my heart. I'm lighter. My mental attitude, my aches and pains, my chronic migraines that I woke up with every day. Who knew, right? Who knew? Changing your food could change your life. I did it for all those years, 58 years.
And if we knew you 94 pounds ago, did you have this joy and this energy? Was this is this just your nature, or was it
I've
more
always,
of an effort?
yeah, no, of course not. I mean, we all have our down days. I lost my beloved mom and my sister within a year and a half of each other about 4 years ago. Yeah. So you'll probably see a sudden stop, like a guillotine cut, of my social media posts, because it filleted me open to my biggest supporters. So, as I have recovered from that grief, or beginning to, because it's never going away, they will always be a big gap in my life. I've regained that energy. So I don't want anybody to think it's all roses and fairy dust and unicorns prancing across, but hey, it's just amazing how much better I feel without carrying around. If anybody, okay, I'm going to use a travel. You guys checked in luggage for the trip, right? For the cruise we got off a couple of weeks ago. I checked
with one carry-on.
Well,
One carry-on.
Well, you're a dude. You are a dude. You don't need hair products.
I don't even have hair.
You don't need hair products.
Brian,
you don't need
starting with the ball jokes.
Earrings. No. You don't need to. Okay, I had 2 pieces of luggage. One was 45 pounds and one was 42. That's 87 pounds, and I could barely lift a single one up on the, without having to do this. I carried that on me all the time.
It's so crazy we're talking about this. I'm actually inspired by some of the talks, and I'm like brainstorming my next talk that I'm doing in San Diego. And I'm looking at it, it's like that. It's like we show up to the crew, and actually, this morning I was looking for pictures, right? And it's amazing. Like we show up with we have luggage, but most of us have cargo. Like if we've struggled with all this stuff, like we have cargo, and we got to limit it down to get to luggage. And maybe someday we could be like Tro and just have a carry-on. But
just
we
have
have
a
so
carry-on.
much crap that we're carrying around with us. I just read a survival story that, as a matter of fact, the ship was called the Endurance, and these guys tried to go across Antarctica, and what a nightmare story these guys have, like how they survived. But none of them were looking for donuts and cookies and pizza. They were eating whale blubber. They were doing whatever they had to do, and so many of us say, I can never do that. I can never give those things up. And then when you realize okay, your journey is going to be that much better when you can give up some of those things. You don't have to have those cellophane wrap things, or the grease is going to soak through the bag before you can eat it. Yeah,
and it's so we have cargo we're carrying around, and the luggage, baggage, cargo wasn't just physical for me. It was constantly feeling guilt, constantly shamefully hiding my food wrappers, or how many times I would eat a day, or how much I would eat. If I woke up in the middle of the night to go to the bathroom, I would go in the kitchen because my husband was asleep, and I would sneak eat. That's a burden. That's heavy to live with. And I now, for the first time in my life, can walk into a normal store and buy normal clothes. I was 3X. My clothing size was 3X, and I can sit in a booth at a restaurant. So my energy is partly who I am, and a lot of it, I'm not exhausted because I'm not hauling all that stuff around. I challenge any of you to go into the grocery store, and don't you dare tell me you've only lost 20 pounds. Go get a 20-pound bag of potatoes, or you name it, salt. I don't care. And haul that around the grocery store in your arms. And then at the end of it.
Definitely not potatoes.
No, not potatoes.
Get
Pick
a
up
20-pound
onions.
roast.
Yeah, that's a good one. Do you know I did a video once? It was Thanksgiving, and everybody was buying the butterball turkeys. That's what we do. And so I did in the grocery store, you know what a kettle ball is. I did a butterball. I was doing anyway. Go get yourself a 20-pound turkey and just carry it in front of you. Don't put it in the cart. And at the end of your shopping, tell me that 20 pounds I just lost 20. No. It's incredible. So all that to say, I'm thrilled to be here today.
So a lot of times people lose weight, right? And they face some of the mental challenges, the emotional challenges, and the mindset can be really, sort of stuck in this, if you've struggled for 50 years, there's a lot going on emotionally,
yes.
We call it Elmo, emotions, logic, mentality, and outlook. And what was that like living in Cindy's headspace What did you notice about how you looked at food and lifestyle and did you notice like sort of your brain playing tricks on you and how did you overcome those tricks?
That's a really good question, because what I've eaten on my low carb keto, don't care what you call it, processed carb avoidance lifestyle has evolved over the last 8 years. At first, I utilized a lot of what I call bridge foods, because it was bridging me from real ultra processed sweets to keto, the fat bombs and all that, when that was really popular. But I needed that right then. I needed something that felt, I have the 3 S's. To make this last, it has to be simple enough for what you like to do and cook. Satisfying, mean when you taste it, you're like, that was awesome. And sustainable, both financially and all the things about how much time it takes to maintain that lifestyle. So at first I did a lot of scrolling of keto recipes, but I found that sort of triggered me to make me wanted to eat things, but at least, and sometimes I would just want to eat so bad that I would go to Costco, buy a rotisserie chicken, and sit in the parking lot and just eat until the point I was stuffed. But it kept me. So it's an evolution. I don't think if I had jumped right into beef, butter, bacon, and eggs or something like that, I would have been able to do it. So I did that for a while. Then I realized scrolling recipes wasn't good for me. So if I found a recipe I want, I printed it out. I put it in a 3-ring binder, and then I would just, do that. And then I realized I wasn't making as many treats. And then I realized one day I walked into the kitchen. I looked at my husband. I said, "It's 1 o'clock." And he's like, "Yes." And I'm like, "Have I eaten this morning?" He goes, "I don't think so." And I'm like, "All right, weird." And now I'm probably inadvertently a carnivore most days. It just has evolved. So I managed it using the bridges I needed at the time, dirty keto, whatever, because it got me out of prison. And I was on parole. I didn't want to go back to prison. And so it's just evolved over time. So I talked to my sister a lot. I talked to friends. I started asking her Cindy for accountability. My very first video I did in that parking lot. At the time, Facebook for me was only how to stalk my kids and my grandkids and stay in touch with high school buds. And I did this video and I said, "Hey, you guys have known me my whole life. I've been obese. But I wanted to tell you," because I was just doing it from my daughter, Rachel, had just shown me how to do a Facebook Live. Never had heard of it before because I'm 67. We didn't grow up with that in our hand. And I did this little video saying, "I've been set free. I'm going to start doing some videos to hold myself accountable so I can look in the camera and tell you guys that I walked into that gas station and walked back out and I did not buy a snack." I didn't even think about it till I sat down in the car. Because normally it would be sit down in the car, put the cup in the cup holder, reach down, grab the cellophane and start eating before because then I could throw the wrappers away before I left the parking lot. And before I knew it, I'm getting these ping, ping, so and so wants to be your friend. And I called Rachel and I said, would you go to your mom's Facebook page and tell me what's going on? And umpty dump people had shared it. So I think being accountable like we are here today, the 3 of us, and sharing the struggles, sharing the victories, talking through, for me, I think that was probably one of the major ways that I managed the change, because it's a big change when that's all you've ever known is being the one that gets the stares, the snicker, not the Snickers like the candy bar, but the guys sort of like rolling their eyes and doing that. To not, the first time I could snap the seatbelt together without an extension, I unsnapped, stood up, walked down the aisle, handed it back to the flight attendant. I said, "I don't need this anymore."
Yeah, it's amazing in that, like, you weren't using willpower. It just wasn't on your mind. It wasn't like you had to have that because you're starving to death all the time, right? You had this mindset, and that's so amazing to me when people say it's too restrictive and it's not sustainable. And you say, well, Nurse Cindy doesn't agree. I don't agree. Tro doesn't agree. Because being free, I mean, the bondage is being, being crippled, like you have to eat every 2 hours and you have to eat cookies and you can't think about surviving, without donuts or whatever it is. And these things that people don't realize how in chains we are over these things. And when someone says, "Hey, I skipped lunch yesterday," and it's like, "Oh my gosh." And once you do it once, you go, "Okay, maybe I could do that again." Right? If you never do it and you fear it the whole time, you never achieve.
I know. It is, do you know what's restrictive? Restrictive is the seatbelt extension and trying to hide it rolled up in your hand as you walk down the aisle. It's being the one that says at a restaurant and the waitress says table or booth, and you quickly say table because you don't fit in a booth. That's restriction. But I have invested a lot of time learning medically why I can't go back. The glycation, the inflammation, all the things that I can avoid in the chronic disease category by changing what I put in my mouth. And I'd like to say that it was easy, but it wasn't, because it was 57 years, gentlemen, 57 years of only eating one way. And that was all the time and anything I could get my hands on that had sugar. So but was it worth it? OMG.
Yeah, and the amazing thing is you break yourself free from bondage, right? You're a prisoner who breaks free, and then you go back to save everyone else who's locked up, right?
You try, but they too they've got the key in their hand. They just have to reach. You remember those old Westerns when they would reach through and they'd undo the lock on their own jail cell?
Yep. But did you face, so I know losing a lot of weight, like it put me in this place where people started to value my opinion more, because it's sort of like you cover something. What's that?
Who?
Yeah, I know, right? So did people start to come to you, and as they came to you for help, did you have anybody say, well, you shouldn't be telling them that, or you shouldn't be, like, did you face adversity, or did anybody challenge, like, this is going to give you a heart attack, Nurse Cindy, or you're going to give me a heart attack, Nurse Cindy, or, you can't really be eating that way. So how did you reconcile other naysayers? And how did you reconcile people like naysaying? Yeah. How did you reconcile that?
Yeah. So it was, interestingly enough, initially it was family and close friends, because when I started to lose that weight, and I think this is probably others have experienced it as well, your ability to be enthused and to eat differently and break out of that norm of, well, this is how we eat. This is our family. This is our food is such a vital part of community that I think some of them were threatened. They eventually, many of them joined, but I would just say, I'm allergic to onions. I get so sick if I have onions. And I said to them, you know how I just can't have onions? And they knew. And I'm like, I can no longer have those processed carbs. I'm sick and tired of being sick and tired. And I'm certainly, you can eat whichever way you want. My husband's family was just they didn't know how to touch me because I was already high maintenance because I couldn't do onions. And I'd go over for a dinner and they'd start apologizing and I'm like, it's good. It's good. I'm fine. And I'd bring my meat, and early on I'd bring keto treats. And how do you do it? You have to have your own true north. That epiphany listening to Dr. Sarah Hallberg. And then I went to a low carb conference, an educational conference, probably within several months of that. And Dr. Dominic D'Agostino, he was one of the first speakers up, and Dr. David Diamond about cholesterol. And a lot of these myths about ketones versus ketoacidosis, if you're in nutritional ketosis versus a diabetic that's in ketoacidosis, they were just sort of, that resonates. And I'm taking notes furiously. And my family, who none of them are medical, they're just sitting there like, what did they say? And I leaned down at them after we got back from lunch and the afternoon was getting ready to start. And I looked at them, I said, guys, I can never eat ultra processed carbs again. I had no idea. I was death by glycation, death by sticky sugar inside my body. And I just can never do it again. So for me, I altered what I started saying to people. They'd say, is that all you're having? I'm like, yeah, I found I don't do well with all the white foods, white rice, white bread, white potatoes. I didn't go into, at first I was all preaching keto. And then I ended up like offending people, or they're like, you're going to give yourself a heart attack. And then I just started saying, I've stopped sugar and all the other whites, and this works well for me. I feel good. So
yeah, and then you get success in Tro. It's interesting. I'm reading a study on like people who've sustained weight loss and maintained it for X number of years. And they went through and they pulled them and they said, okay, what are like of all the things from losing weight, what's the biggest negatives? Right? Number one, having to spend more money on buying new clothes. That was a negative for them, right? You have to buy new clothes because your old clothes are falling off. It doesn't fit. Number two, the loose skin. Number three, criticisms from others.
right? Criticism from others.
All their family and friends they criticize them because they lost weight. You go, wow, isn't that amazing? That's number three on the list of negatives after working so darn hard and being so dedicated and changing your life, getting your life better, and then you face criticism.
Yeah, it is a fascinating thing. I think one of my hardest.
Oh, did we lose her?
Just for a second, Jack, we're gonna make you work a little bit.
Hardest things, Dr. Tristan.
Oh, Cindy, we lost you for a second.
I'm there. Am I
We're
there?
gonna restart or go. You said one
Am
of the
I
most.
back?
Yeah, now
Am I
you're back.
back?
We just lost you. Just the somehow we lost your internet for a
It says
second.
my internet's unstable, but I've got Google Fiber, so I'm surprised. Huh. Let me look at it.
Google must know they must be trying to censor us again.
Yeah, that's probably
Yeah,
what
that's why
they're
Google
doing.
They know the
censoring
three of
us.
us are
Yeah.
going
Right. Okay, so I'll go back. So Dr. Tro, one of the things you asked about is how did I deal with the changes? And Dr. Brian, it's one of my hardest things as a woman who was never, ever, ever, ever asked out on a date. Never. I was senior class president, and I had to pay a friend's brother from another high school to take me to the senior prom. And to actually start to get some sort of male attention was weird and very awkward, and still is. I came home one day and I told my husband, I said, guys I guess I look weak or something, because guys are asking, can I help you put your luggage overhead? And he's like, oh, girl, you're hot. So that's I hid under my fat for a long time.
Well, did you ever resent it when you started getting attention? Now, all of a sudden, these people who didn't take you seriously or bypassed you, now when they start paying attention to you. So a lot of times I've talked to people and they'll be upset because, they'll see someone, they go, oh my gosh, you look terrible last time I see you. You look so much better now. And then they engage with them more.
They're like,
it's
not
really,
that you look bad before, but you look.
But when
right?
people say, hey, I'm the same person, and it's like about the weight, when the weight was the issue keeping you from people from engaging with you.
Yeah. I don't know if I've heard, maybe I've just gotten good at tuning that out because of how secure I feel that this is right for me. This is right for me, but I don't push it on anybody. If they ask me about it, like I saw, the company I work for just got spun off from 3M, just like GE spun off GE Health, 3M spun off their health division. So we're a new company. So we had this huge meeting, and all these people that I haven't seen except on team meetings like this forever, we saw in person, and it was just pretty. It got not tiresome, but I was like, yeah, I look great. Okay, thank you. How are you? So it is weird. It is weird when you've never been normal. It's weird, but it's a good weird.
I want to talk about that. I faced the same thing, and and it's definitely, it plays with your mind, and you really have to come back and come back to what your values are, and Brian taught me that really, when I was, I lost weight, about 2014, I started to lose weight, and I was married maybe about 10 years, around maybe, 6 years at that time, 7 years. And it was really challenging. I had to grow in a lot of ways, and, how to manage that attention, how to deal with that attention, and what you can and can't do, and how it looks. And, because you go a whole life, and, I'm happily married. I've been married 15 years. My wife is my rock. And, but then it's funny, you don't understand. Like, I did not understand, why is this person talking to me when I'm on the Stairmaster? right? I didn't understand, I didn't understand, I'm on a, I'm in a class. Why is she, why does she want my number? Why is she even looking at me? Why are they looking at me?
Right. It's
and it's
weird.
not always the opposite sex. Sometimes it's the same sex,
Of course it is.
so,
Yeah.
but, and it really puts challenges in it. And then you look into the literature and, people who do bypass, well, all of a sudden there's a huge sort of rates of divorce and hypersexuality. And, it's all sort of listed there.
Drug abuse, alcohol abuse, smoking,
Yes.
they all, the
Trade
addictions
one
go on.
addiction for another. Yeah.
Trade one addiction for another. And so that mindset, is so critical, that weight loss mindset. There needs to be, in my opinion, to keep the weight off, there needs to be some stoicism, because the attacks are from all angles, internal, external. You talked about friends challenging you. You talked about healthcare, challenges that you kind of face, and and then psychological issues, and then advances, from other people. There's just a lot
Weird,
to
right?
handle
Yeah.
that you didn't have to handle.
No,
So
you
how did you
didn't. I
handle it?
never had to handle it my entire life. Yeah.
I'll tell
And
you this,
I
Tro.
think,
Oh, go ahead.
I was just gonna say, I think my husband had a harder time with my travel once I had, started really looking different,
Looking
more so
hot,
than
yeah.
I did. Yeah, much.
Yeah, no, that's a challenge. And that's the other thing. There's a lot of sabotaging that goes on because the husband or the wife says, oh, if they lose weight, they may find someone else and not put up with the trash that I'm giving them. And it's true. There's a lot of that in those relationships where there's so much codependence and fear from both sides of, if other guys aren't looking at you, I don't have to worry as much. And now you look really good. It's like, uh-oh, I better be on my game too. So there is that. And Tro, I want to tell you, I have a new patient of mine. We've been working together for a little while. We were at a conference in Boca, and she had lost a bunch of weight, and she was talking to us, and I didn't remember the conversation, but she said, you know what Tro said to me that really made me upset? Is because she was on track and killing. He said, what are you going to do when you go off track? What are you going to do when things get hard? And she said, I was so pissed and thought, why are you even asking that question? Then she went off the rails. And now we're working on getting her back on the rails, right? But she said, I'm so glad he said that, because when you think you have it all under control is when you're in trouble. When you think you've arrived and you figured it all out, like I've gotten complacent over the years and go, oh, I'm doing okay. Oh, I gained 12 pounds. I got to get back to what my roots are, right? At some point.
Yes,
I think being grounded and stoic is there's a little bit of being curious, and the biggest thing I could
what
say.
What can I get away with, right? What can I get away with? What works? What doesn't,
opposite.
right?
I think it's what do I need in new decks? How do I do better? How do I make this easier? How do I make it more sustainable? What am I going to do when I'm sleepless, pissed off, stressed out? Patient died, upset, haven't slept, anxious, firing shots at the doctor and can't sleep at night, so like that's,
Yeah, it's emotional management, right? It's finding ways to not turn to food for that. And I went into a deep, dark spiral after Mom and Debbie died. And now I look back and I realize, and I've consciously said this out loud to myself, if you start eating now, it's over. And I reinforced that single decision that I made that day at that conference, that I can never eat processed carbs again because of that addictive relationship I had with them. And in addiction recovery, there is this thing called the power of a single decision. Now I don't have to worry what I'm going to do on my birthday or at Christmas or Aunt Mary's favorite tiramisu or whatever, because I can never do that again. I can love them. I can say, wow, this is great. But it's not easy, but is it worth it? See, I don't want to, in my life, focus on that it's not easy. I want to focus on how easy it has made other areas of my life. And that is something that if we can look at what we've gained versus what we've given up. I might have lost weight, but I've gained energy. I might have lost donuts, but I've gained the freedom to jump on a trampoline with my grandkids. I have 11 grandchildren. I'm going to be a great grandmother next month. And I want to be that sassy 95-year-old who can still throw the ball with my kids. And that is what I try to focus on. I'll tell you one funny story. I woke up about a year ago, and I woke up immediately, like fully alert, going, why did you do that, Cindy? I had gone to Krispy Kreme donuts and gotten a dozen crispy, it's light, the light's on so they're warm, and eaten them. And I woke up with such remorse and confusion, and I laid there in bed. It was so real. And I thought through the previous day, and I realized I'd never left the house. I had dreamt an extremely realistic dream. It's so real. So there's still that constant trigger if I don't guard against it. Every single day I guard. And I'm very fortunate. My husband has just totally embraced this lifestyle, and we don't have foods in the house that are problematic. We have
the right word, addictive.
Yes.
Word, addictive.
Yeah, and Troy, we noticed that we were at dinner on the cruise, right? We're all we're all low carb people. And a couple of the ladies weren't as strict as we were. And so they brought the bread, and she grabbed 2 pieces of bread right away. And she told the guy, please, tomorrow, don't bring, because if you bring it, I'm going to eat it. And I think that is a thing where so many people, Tro knows also, is that I go say, what happened on Wednesday? The sugars went crazy. Oh, my husband brought home donuts. It's his fault, right? It's like, did he force those into your mouth? What happened? Like, so some of us, the donuts will be there and go, okay, I'm just not eating the donuts. Like, it's not a willpower. You just go, I'm just not, it's not in my mindset.
Yeah.
And the power of the mind, I've been really intrigued by this whole thing, some of these concepts that, the strongholds, like Jessica talked about. We all loved her talk. And Coach Jessica was talking about strongholds that we believe. They're lies that are not true that we believe. Right? Like, you're weak, you failed every other time. Go, yeah, but not this time, right? This is different. I'm a different person, or I'm going to be stronger this time. So a lot of us have those self-doubts and those fears and all those, when everyone's saying you're doing the wrong thing, you're just like, how do I keep going? I was thinking about it, like, this talk I'm thinking about is, okay, you're going to get on the Mayflower to come to the US. All your friends are going, you're an idiot. You're crazy. Why are you going on that ship? It's not going to make it. You're going to be sick, and people are going to be throwing up, and there's going to be waves and storms and all this stuff.
Right.
But either you're getting away from something bad, or you're going towards something better.
Yes.
And we have to remember that. We forget while we're on this voyage, like, I don't know where I'm going. I'm just getting on the ship. No, you got to know, right? If you're going to be in prison in the UK or in England forever, you go, okay, I'll go on the ship. It's worth it. It's worth taking a chance. Yeah. But so many of us forget, why in the heck am I doing? Then the first storm comes, you're like, I'm going back. Right? You forget why you're doing this whole thing. And I think that's the problem is, if the captain gets off course and he goes, well, I went off course for a day, screw it. I'm just going to go way off course. I'm never going to try to get back on course. You're like, well, that's not very good either, right? So many of us, that little thing, we get off course and we can't get back. That's the problem, right? So Tro, you've raised that question, and I've been thinking about it. You're saying, is it because people just don't have the right information? They don't know what to do? Is it once we give them that information, is that now personal responsibility? If you know where you're supposed to go and you have all the tools and you have all the team, then is that personal responsibility at that time? Or is it just, you're going to go off course?
Yeah, I think that's a great question, and one that of course will vary by patient and where they're at, where I was in my life, and how many failures I'd had before. A very close family member, I was telling him, very close, admire him tremendously. And when I told him I was starting keto, blah, 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 he literally took his pen, he sort of threw it down on his desk, and he looked at me, he says, well, let's see how long this one lasts. Fired me up.
Yeah, and I think that's the difference. Some of us will get fired up. Some people go, well, they don't think it's a good idea, I'm not going to do it, And I was thinking about, it's like, the lions really don't care what the hyenas think, right? They don't really care. They go, hyenas, laugh all you want. I'm going to go kill this thing, and I'm going to, right? So a lot of us are like that. And so many of us go, well, my neighbor said it isn't going to work. Well, your neighbor's 350 pounds and diabetic. Do you think they're the expert on this subject matter, right? True. And so it's a hard thing, because so many people have opinions. And, the way I look at it is like, when someone makes a movie, you have all the critics saying how bad it is, but the critics have never made a movie.
Yes.
They've never participated in the game. So it's like, you know what? Either you prove them wrong, and if it doesn't work, then you go on to the next thing. You don't keep doing the thing that's not working for you. You figure it out, right? And I think we all say, change course. If there's a big storm coming, you may have to change course for a little while. They get back on track again.
Yep. And one of the things I think It's that power of the single decision. Once you make a single decision, let's use an example. I will never stand on those train tracks again. Okay, that's a good choice because eventually you're gonna get killed. I will never lay my hand on a hot stove again and just let it sit there because you're going to really damage yourself. And I was able to connect that what I was doing was it was already harming me, but it was ultimately going to cause an early, painful death. And so I was able to, now I eat luscious, wonderful, amazing foods, wonderful, satisfying. I make keto treats when I'm in the mood for them. And they've come out with so many great sweeteners in the last 8 years that I can make some amazing things, but I don't get decision fatigue. What am I going to do today? Am I going to stay on plan today? That gets tiring. I did one lecture I did at Low Carb Salt Lake. I listed all the different times of the year. There's some sort of major something. There's New Year's Day, New Year's Eve, New Year's Day. There's Super Bowl. There's Valentine's Day. There's Easter. Let's throw in St. Patrick's Day because we can. And then we've got, graduation from high school, college, whatever. And then we've got, then we got a little break in the summer and we're only doing
anniversaries, everything, right?
And then we go into Halloween and then it's November and then it's all the Christmas parties, all of December. And let's then pepper in 11 grandkids' birthdays and all the families and all the celebrations and wedding. It's easier for me just to say I won't do it again than to have to make a decision every day. Just won't do it.
Yeah, most people, I think,
but I had 58 years of failure.
Yeah, I think most people have a hard time. You cut in and out there, but most people have a hard time facing social situations, vacations, and holidays. That's it. That's a graveyard for a lifestyle, right? If you're not planning for those things, you're not planning. You're actually planned to fail. So if you didn't plan for those things and what you're going to do, you planned to fail. That's the way I would look at it. And the reason why it's planned to fail comes back to this idea. We're all gamblers. This world is a casino.
Yes.
Right? Our food system is so manipulated. There's no escape. Right? You are a gambler in a casino. Actually 90% of us are gamblers in a casino, right? 90% have poor metabolic health. So I'm with you. If you're going to face decision fatigue each time if you don't know what you're doing. So it's so important to map that out.
And
this person struggles, like 30 times per year.
Yes.
And if you're off plan for a week for 30 times, that's 30 weeks. The whole year is gone. You were off plan for, so if you can plan for 25 of them, be off plan for just that meal, right? Now you had 5 questionable meals and the rest of your year is you're free, Sorry, I had to get on my
Yeah, no, and just the psychology of that, they know, even on the cruise ship, like my wife was saying, every time you go to dinner, you have to walk through the casino to get there, right? They know you're gonna, and certain people are gonna go, let's just pay $20, let's pay $5, let's pay $100. There were some people sit there all night, but they put you through that thing where you have to walk through there, right? And so the same thing is, if my weakness is chips and salsa, I don't go to the Mexican restaurant because that's putting me in that bad area. I say I'll make it at home and I'll make my carne asada, but when it's there, it's a more challenging, right? For sure. We all have our weaknesses, and so sometimes you go, oh, it's just so-and-so's birthday, I'll just do it this one time. And so I had a lady, she was freaking out, calling me about her CGM being off, and I was like, well, I don't know, what did you do? I just had keto ice cream. Oh, what kind of ice cream? When we look at it, we look it up together online. Third ingredient is oh shoot, what is it?
Maltitol? Was it maltitol?
Maltodextran. Maltodextran. Before milk was maltodextran. I was like, that's sugar, right? That's sugar, right? So it wasn't your CGM was wrong. Your food was wrong. So those things we can learn from. So many things. I know Vinny's movie's coming out, and I'm gonna actually talk to him today. Dirty keto. What is that? Should we get rid of all rosettes and never have it again? Or do we have that option if our friends are coming over to have pizza, right? Or whatever it is, you go, okay, like you said, if the bar's too hard and you say you can only eat butter and steak the rest of your life, you go, doesn't sound that great to me. I like to have some guacamole sometimes. Is that going to kill me? Right. So I think there's so much of that you know, anyone, I'm telling you, it's hilarious to me. I think it's so funny that when you see someone post a picture of their lunch, you go, oh, I can't wait to see the comments. Because someone's going to go, are you eating on a paper plate? Do you know how many chemicals are in that? Or you had asparagus next to it? Are you kidding me? You're eating asparagus? Like, do you have a death wish? Like, you know what I mean? Like, we get so militant about stuff instead of saying, hey, enjoy it. Was it good? Great.
Yeah.
You're in good shape. Super.
I totally agree. And it's habits are made up of decisions that you make and then you employ into your life, and they're either will be habitually doing things to harm us or to help us. And I don't know if you've ever heard of the Atomic Habits. Oh gosh, what's that guy's name?
Yeah, the book is a great book.
It's a great book, right?
Yeah.
It's a great book. And it's those little things that you do or don't do, like get up and make your bed. You've accomplished something. I do a lot of like what I call functional exercise. One of the most common reasons someone has to go into an assisted living section or apartment or whatever it is, meaning that I need help toileting myself, lifting things off of the floor if I drop them, and or if I fall on the floor, I cannot get up. So every single day I sit on the floor at least once. So why? So I can get back up. Every single day when I go to the bathroom and get myself put back together, I do what I call papa squats. I stand up, I sit down. I stand up, I sit down. Why? Because I want to be able to get myself out of a chair or recliner every single day. When I drop something, if it's too far, I just watch what I do, because in my career, so many of my patients are in their early 60s and in assisted living, or heaven forbid in a nursing home, because they've lost muscle mass and they've lost balance. And so I guess I've got a interesting insight into what happens if you're not consciously deciding to get better and to not get weaker as you age. So it's but I want to remind your viewers, I was 58 years old before I found any of this out. Okay. So it's not like I've lived this life. I've not been a personal trainer all my life. I was 305 pounds. So anybody can do it. If I can do it, guys, anybody.
Yeah, it's amazing. I can't even picture it. Knowing you, I can't even picture it, right? It's like beyond my imagination to say you went from 305 pounds to where you're at now, and your ball of energy at 5'2".
Yeah. Yeah. I'm overall from my highest weight ever. I'm down over 150 pounds from my highest weight ever. Yeah.
Yeah. That's just incredible. And you just like all those life lessons, all the failures, all those things got to where you're at now. And so many of us go, well, I blew it every time. And like having your family member say that, like, okay, how long is this? And that's okay. I mean, that's not unreasonable to say, look, you've tried all these other things. And, it's like the get rich fast people. They go, this is the next big thing that's going to work, right? I'll just shoot myself with this stuff and I'll lose 50 pounds, and all these things that we've seen them do, like all these Dr. Oz things. We've seen white bark, and you had bark from this tree. You got to, go look at north and jump up and down 4 times, all this crazy stuff that you go, okay, this doesn't make sense. But when you have people like you who've done it and you've had success, and it's funny, with all Tro's success, people say, as a matter of fact, it was funny enough, Tro was saying how much he ate on the cruise, and all these people, that's not true. It's impossible. I'm like, I watched it. I was sitting at the table. Yes, it is true. Because it's amazing that the waiter's looking at us like, are you serious? Like, like you're joking, right? But Tro can do it, and he loses 3 pounds on a cruise, right? It's just amazing. But eating the right stuff and eating the right energy, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
I think what helped, Brian, was the fact that I took the stairs every day, and you and your beautiful wife and Rosette and I, we walked so much.
Yeah.
Every time we got out on that cruise, we did like a couple miles. So
and we got to work out with Bronson, and
it was great. Next time we got to work out with Cindy. I didn't. We got to get you in the gym.
Yep, that sounds great.
But it's amazing, and I'll tell people, as a commercial for the Low Carb Cruise, I was actually blown away. I couldn't believe having that many people and everything. Like the whole time I'm sitting there, something's gonna go wrong. Like nothing goes this smooth in life, and it was just they did such a great job, and they went out of their way to make everyone happy. And
I got to do wall sits with you.
Yeah, we got to do wall sits during the conference, and it was great. But just seeing the interaction of everyone and people having great questions and being in that environment where we can, you know, have the great ones like Ben Bickman there, and, you know, people that we can kind of just bounce things off and, you know, what about this study, you know, things like that, but really talking about life and seeing that, you know, just that we're all human and we all have our faults and our, you know, struggles, and we're all in the same boat. I guess
Yeah.
we have to say ship when we're on there because people get upset. They get
Yeah, I
offended if
know.
you call their ship a boat.
Ship.
But, you know, but it was just great to see the positive, you know, all these positive people and the camaraderie. It's really something. They really do a great job.
Yeah.
Even Tro had fun. We got him
Even
in his
Tro.
little, he had to keep his head covered. We put him under the umbrella and everything, and he was happy.
I'm going to get him an umbrella hat. You know, those little things, they have a band here.
Yeah.
And it has a little umbrella.
Really good. You guys are really rubbing
He
it
has a
into
tinfoil
balls,
hat. We could
you
use
know?
that.
Well, that one.
Why didn't you bring a tinfoil hat on the trip?
You know, the tinfoil hat worked out. You know, it's been working out when we questioned the guidelines, when we questioned COVID, when we questioned all of it. You know, it's definitely been working out.
It's funny, Tro, because I always think back to when we got just when we first started out episode 11, 13, we were talking about addiction, food addiction, and mood and all this stuff, and everyone thought we were nuts. And we were seeing it with our patients. We're like, this is what we're seeing. And then now all the studies come out. I wonder every day when those studies come out, what those doctors who wanted our medical license think.
Right.
Right. It's clear now. Stanford's doing research on metabolic health, and, you know, with depression, anxiety, bipolar, and, you know, all these things. It sounded like what you were saying, Cindy. Like when I first went to my first conference, I was like, yeah, they're talking about cancer prevention. They're talking about all these, not just diabetes and obesity. They're talking about all kinds of stuff that gets better when you get your lifestyle right.
No,
so how many of us want to live in that old place? Like we want to live where we're getting beat up, and you know, it's better to get on the ship. You got to change the lifestyle. It's really important.
It really is.
Even being on the ship, you see that, like, some people are 350 and their family has to push them up in wheelchairs up this. I'm thinking, man, that's a workout, right? You have to push someone up a ramp, and that's tough because no one wants to be in that position. No one wants to be where you can't get up off the ground, you know, and those are important things. And I'll have to ask you, Cindy, with wound care, like what percentage of the people that we're seeing with these chronic wounds are diabetic and metabolically sick?
That's a very important question, because when I started wound care as my specialty 32 years ago, maybe, and this is just me guessing, 30%. Now I would say 85 to 90%. And that, of course, that excludes the traumatic injuries. That's just something that happens to you. And that's an acute injury, and a chronic wound is something that has developed typically over time. And a lot of the cascade of healing starts with, if I've cut myself, the very first thing the body has to do, think of this as a house fire. The very first thing the body has to do is put out the fire, and that's stop the bleeding. That's called hemostasis. The next thing that happened is the body has to recognize, and it brings all of these little soldiers in, and it twitters and says, oh my God, there's been an injury. We've controlled the bleeding. And all these white blood cells and things come in, and other proteases to clean up the debris. And that's when they come in, and the guys come in and clean out your house from the smoke damage, and they pull down the wall. And that's inflammation. We talk a lot about inflammation in lifestyle, right? With chronic inflammation. That inflammatory part of wound healing should last 3 to 5 days. Think of a paper cut. It's red and inflamed for 3 to 5 days, then it heals. However, if I have chronic inflammation, if I have poor circulation because of the lifestyle and the glycation and all the changes that the advanced glycation, sticky sugar, sticks to proteins inside my body, and then it doesn't let go. So I get a lot of downstream impact with poor circulation. Blood brings in the groceries, and it takes out the trash. And if I can't get the groceries in or get the trash out, so the healing is very slow in someone with diabetes. And the more elevated their hemoglobin A1C, the more seats on the bus that are taken up by sugar instead of being able to handle oxygen, the slower the healing rate. On average, there is 1 diabetic foot amputation per second globally. One amputation from the complications of diabetes and you get ulcer on the foot per second globally. So a lot, Dr. Brian, a lot of my patients are diabetic. It's going to get to a crossover point very quickly that the complications of diabetes, because it's not just a wound, it's look, kidney dialysis centers are popping up just like a Jack in the Box or a McDonald's practically, depending on where you're driving. The renal failure, the blindness, all those things will cascade out. And we are really teetering on the point of financial ruin in the healthcare world.
Yeah, we're crumbling under our own weight, right? In our own metabolic disease. And that's an issue. And that's why I wanted to ask you, is for me, when people ask why are you passionate, I've seen too many diabetic foot ulcers. It's horrible. Like your job is like, okay, I'll call Nurse Cindy. I don't want to deal with it, right? But the problem is I could see, like, if you see kid making bad choices and taking drugs and not working and not going to school, you know where they're going to end up, right? Most likely. So those things, when you see it, go, I don't want to get on that ship. You're a sinking ship. If your sugars are 400 for forever, and we know about the blind, and then you can't fix all those problems. Then as a doctor, you're so helpless. So when we see it, like we know we're preventing those disasters by changing the oil. You don't blow up your engine, and we're trying to fix your engine. And it's so hard that our healthcare system doesn't see that. They don't see preventive care as being valuable.
Yeah, and it is. And there's so much repair we can affect by changing what we eat. The body has this amazing ability to start to self-repair. If we don't it's the root cause, right? If we don't keep assaulting it with chemicals and processed sugars and all the things. And we've seen some great turnaround. My last hemoglobin A1C, I think, was 5.2. That's good. I'm happy. I'd like to get it in the 4s, but I'm good with 5.
Yeah, that's awesome. You're a beast. You're amazing. You're an amazing person. We're just so happy to have you. And, so great spending time with you, being locked up with me and Tro for a week,
It was a blast.
No, most people can't survive that. You did pretty well. You even smiled.
I do have to say I prefer your wives.
Yeah.
It's the truth. You're not the only one, to be honest.
We had fun dancing, didn't we, that night? That was so much fun.
Oh my, I have it on camera. I don't know if I posted it yet, but that'll go up soon.
Oh, no.
I have it on camera.
Oh no.
Yes, it's true.
Yeah, that was a fun time. What a
Ryan,
great
can
time.
I tell you, you two were the life of the party. You two are just awesome. You two are just awesome.
Love to dance. Do you think I danced when I was 305 pounds or 240?
Yes.
I feel like this in spirit.
I'll bet you did. I'll bet you did insecurely.
Yeah. In spirit through my house, but would I have gone out there and shaken my booty? No.
Yeah, and I think that's such an important thing. You say, how much am I not doing because of the weight? How many people are not evangelizing? They're not going out because they don't think people take them seriously, or they, you don't have the impact. Like if you're a salesman and you walk in and you're 400 pounds, like, it's a hard thing, and people don't realize the discrimination that happens.
Still there.
And incredible. A friend of mine, when he was a lot heavier, he said, people would walk by his desk and go to the next guy who was, thinner, because they think you must be dumb and lazy. Like that's the mindset people have, and it's so unfair. But also, how do we leave you there? Like if we say, well, Nurse Cindy, when you're at 305, you're just the way you're supposed to be. That's 5 to 5.2. I mean, it takes love too to say, hey, can I help you? And yours was self-motivated, and I love it because you're like me too. If someone says you can't do that, it's like, okay, let's see. Let's see if I can do that now. Now I'm gonna do it just because you said I can't do it. Right? It's that point. So some of that is digging. However you do it, and it's what we do know is that nagging someone against their will is not going to help, right? If you nag them, you should do this, you should that. No one wants to hear that. But if you lead by example and someone goes, Cindy, what did you do? How did you do this? And now you can share your story, but just going and evangelizing when people don't want to be evangelized to, because some people just are like, a lot of us weren't at that spot yet. We have to be, you plant the seeds and you have to wait for it to grow,
I have a dear work friend who, when I first started this, I'd been maybe a couple of years in it, and she and I were working together on a project, and she leaned over and she goes, I'm on 100 units of insulin a day. And she was sharing some other things with me, and she goes, what are you doing? You look wonderful. You're energetic. And so I shared it with her, and I saw her at that big meeting and I almost didn't recognize her. And she walks up and she holds her arms out to me and she goes, you saved my life.
Wow. Yeah.
And I said, no, I didn't. You did. You asked me questions. You researched. You found your way. You saved your life. You did it. And that's why we're doing, the three of us, what we're doing. So people can save themselves.
That's an amen. So I'll ask you two while I have you before we escape. what do you think is the top trait for someone who has success? Since you both have done it, like what do you think is the most character? What is it the thing that is most likely to give you success in trying lifestyle change?
For me, it was seeking to understand the impact food had inside of my body and wanting to be healthier. I needed to understand it. I'm a clinician. I want to understand. And once I started connecting that hypertension and a lot of the cardiovascular diseases and definitely diabetes, once I understand all these things I deal with daily for 45 years with patients and looking at myself being that there, once I understood it, I was like, oh. So I think knowing it's not about the weight loss, it's about the health gain for me was I think, and then once the hunger went away, once I could find that I could eat really good food and pretty much as I wanted on days that I just needed to manage my emotions with it, it was just what I ate. I think once I found that and the cravings dropped and I gained knowledge about that I could impact my health and my future, for me, those were the things that came together.
It's so insightful. I mean, it's I think the biggest thing, it's a great question, Brian. I posed a very similar question, like, what would be more important? Really understanding all the lies and all the dogma, both external, the ones we've been told, and the ones we've internalized, right? Or what would be more helpful? Being insanely accountable and insanely responsible. And I've come to the conclusion that if you take either one of those to the extreme, you win. If you educate yourself, become so knowledgeable, so insightful that you uncover everything about the world and you, or just enough, you can tackle this. If you never give up, ever give up, every hardship, you come out of it right away, figure it out, and put something new in place, get better. Right? Either one of those leads to lasting success. You want to really win, you take both of them. But either path takes you to success. If you never fail, or every failure becomes something new you learned, you will get there through trial and error, and just will and perseverance. Right? Yeah. And if you really uncover the lies you've told yourself, the lies you've been told, probably your whole life, Cindy, me, right? All of us, that just have one, I made it for you, we shouldn't waste food, all those little lies, like you already went off plan, keep going, who cares? You'll start again Monday. Every little lie, internal, external, the food pyramid, if you really understand all the lies to the nth degree, you'll win. Yeah. You'll win. So those are the two I battle, Brian. My heart is with really understanding the problem. That was my journey, really understanding the problem. But I know people who've done it through sheer will and perseverance.
Yeah, I think if you have perseverance, so that's what the words I'm thinking is patience and perseverance. Because if you gain 1 pound 1 week, you go, that's it, it's not working, I'm done. It's been 1 week. You don't get, I was thinking about that. You should, if I show a picture of a pregnant lady, it's like, how long is it going to take for that baby to be born? Not a month, because you want it, and you're going to work so hard to make your baby come out in a month. No, it's going to take 9 months. You got to be ready for that and say, okay, it's going to take 9 months. I got to deal with this. So I think as long as we're perseverance and we're on that path and we go and we get knocked up and we get back. I mean, the stubborn person who gets knocked down, they get up, knocked down, get up, knocked down, get up, like Rocky. If he won all of his fights, no one would they go, okay, he's the champion. That's just the way he is. But when he gets beat up and then comes back, right? And so I think that's the thing, is when we can get knocked down and get back up. You go through you get complacent, you get lazy for a little while, then you go, okay, I like something lights the fire, whether it's someone saying you can't do it, or whether it's you saying, I really want to fit in that bathing suit or whatever it is, that like it could be positive or negative, I think. You know, some of the negative comments, you go, okay, I'm going to prove you wrong just because of that, you know, but I think it's believing in yourself too. And I think having that confidence, like, okay, it doesn't matter what everyone says. Like when Tro and I took heat during some of the stuff that we go, that 6 foot rule doesn't make sense. Where's it coming from? Now they go, oh, I never had a rule. We just made it up. And you go, okay, we were right. And but at the time we were killing grandma by saying there's no science to that. It's your opinion. If we have science, we can say it. So I think that's what's happening now is all these lies that we believe, like there's no science behind it. There's no data behind it, the food pyramid, all these things. And you go, I get to be upset about that all the time or just say, okay, here's what I'm going to do. Right. And at some point, and I think the one of the big things is the inertia of getting off the ground, right? Because part of it is we could say so many people are like, oh, I'm going to keep eating my cookies. I'm going to read Vinny's book and I'll read Tro's book and I'll do, and you access all this information without ever moving, without ever starting to make a change. So sometimes you get on that and say, okay, then I'll change course as I go, but I got to start the journey at some point. So some people, they have that procrastination. I'll wait till Monday. I'll wait till after the holidays, after the Super Bowl, then I'll get really serious. But I think it's just getting on track and doing it. And then when you say, I want to either escape the pain or I want to go towards pleasure, one of those two things, and then get on the journey and go. And know you're going to get knocked down. There's going to be weather problems and storms and stuff's not going to go right, you know, except on the Low Carb Cruise, everything went perfect. But, you know, other than that in life, you got to anticipate there's going to be issues. Now, how do you deal with it? And all of us are in a better mental state to deal with it than when you're high on sugary foods all the time. So, gosh, Nurse Cindy is so great. So great to have you.
A delight.
Bro, I agree. She should just take over for me.
You can retire now, you know?
Yeah, I can retire. I'm at that age. Like one of my older patients came from the nursing home and she goes, doctor, I hear you're retiring. I'm so sad. I said, really? That's the first I've heard. Oh, all the people in the nursing home are saying you're retiring. Like, okay. I go, maybe they could tell me my plan. So I don't have a plan yet. So maybe they can help me out. But it's funny how these things start, you know?
I'll come back as often as you guys invite me.
See you
tomorrow. Yeah, tomorrow, next Friday, all the time. No, it's such a joy to have you and the lives you've impacted and, you know, your life story and, you know, doing wound care says something. Cause I'll tell you, you know, one of my life experiences, we had a family member who was in a really bad accident, was in like severe burns. And I went to the burn center and I thought I could never, ever, ever do this. I mean, you know, cause you have to hurt people to make them better. You know, you have to scrub the old skin up, and that's kind of what we're talking about too, going through why is it that we're doing these things. And you can't just say, okay, we'll put a Band-Aid on top of that, you know, infected wound and see if it heals. Like we have to fix it. So I think diving in, doing the hard work, and that's kind of what we're doing. And that's what we've all kind of done in our lives.
Yeah, absolutely.
Fun stuff.
A lot of fun stuff. This is great. We'll see you next Friday, 1:00. Brian.
For sure. Sorry.
We may have somebody who comes back. I'm not kidding. Brian's kidding. I'm not kidding. You know?
Yeah, no, we could do it. I would love it.
Let's talk, guys.
Let's do that. All right. We'll rotate.
Yeah, sounds great. All right.
Take care.
All right.
Wait. How do people find you?
Geez.
We'll put it in the show notes, but how do people find you?
Well,
YouTube.
I won't give you my phone number, but I'll give you my my Facebook. It's all squished together. Ask Nurse Cindy at, I guess, YouTube, whatever that is. I don't know. Ask Nurse Cindy on Facebook. You'll find me.
Awesome.
I don't have a website. I don't sell anything, but I talk a lot. I was telling my family that I think I'm getting pulled back into social media because I took that hiatus due to grief, very severe grief. And anyone that's gone through that, and most of us have at some level, I just stopped doing social media. But you guys, and I was with Dr. Hampton last week on a podcast. So all right, I guess it's time.
Oh, we better get her before Hampton gets her.
Yeah, he got her before we did. My goodness. My goodness. No, it's so great. And your perspective and life experience is so great. And we really appreciate you joining us. And our listeners got a what's it, like, not gold standard, it's platinum standard today. I mean, you know, this is a lot of really useful information. You can know all the facts you want, but how do we apply that? How do I say, okay, that's it. I'm not having that donut. I'm not having this thing that's bad for me. So yeah, it's amazing.
You go buy rotisserie chicken and eat as much as you want. Just don't go back to the carbs.
Yeah. Tro, any parting words of wisdom for us?
No, that's it. Super exciting. We'll see you next week at 1:00. All right. No, but it's been great. It's really been great. We'll put everything in the show notes. Go visit her, guys, if you haven't, on Facebook, YouTube.
Poop Talk is worth listening to. It changed my wife's life. And yeah, Cindy does it all. Like she talks about whatever she wants to, and that's awesome.
All right, guys. To our listeners, thank you again for supporting us. Visit Patreon, give us donations, because Brian and I fund this completely independently. It is completely, we have not received one penny from any commercial interest. And if you like this, if you've been listening to us for 350 episodes, go to Patreon, give us some support, and we appreciate it.
All right, and if you don't like it, then donate a little money, and then we could like get fancy lighting and editing and
make it even
all
better.
Kinds of fun stuff.
Yeah. I could get better lighting. Yeah.
Yeah. Thanks, guys.
Thanks for your support.
All right. Have a good one. Thank you for having me.